Capes on the Couch podcast is for entertainment purposes only. Dr. Issues is a psychiatrist, but he is not your psychiatrist and does not have knowledge of your individual situation. For any personal mental health concerns, please consult your own healthcare providers. For medical emergencies, please call 911 or the designated number in your area immediately. Remember that you are not alone and help is out there.
Hello and welcome to Capes on the Couch, where comics need counseling. I'm Anthony Sitko, joined once again by my good buddy, Dr. Issues.
Hello, everybody.
So this is our 10th issue, episode number 10. We've been 2.5 months already.
Wow, 2 digits.
Double digits. It's a long way. We're from where we started off, even just 2.5 months. I feel like we've, personally and over the course of the show, made a lot of growth, learned a lot of things, and certainly we have you, the listening audience, to thank for that, at least from the bottom of my heart. I think I can speak for you, Doc, when I say you guys are awesome and kick-ass. Yes,
you certainly can. We greatly appreciate everything that you've done for us so far, and we look forward to continue hearing from you.
Absolutely. We're going to get a little more into that in just a second. But before we continue, as always, you can find us on our website, capesonthecouch.live. We're distributed through the Libsyn Network. You can reach out to us via Twitter, Capes on the Couch, Facebook page, and our email address is capesonthecouch@gmail.com. And this show can be downloaded on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn, and YouTube. Before we get into the topic at hand, and this week's character is the one and only Merc with the Mouth, Deadpool.
So excited.
I know, seriously. We had so much fun just talking about this episode and planning it and figuring out what we were going to do. A couple of things. First off, I know we have the disclaimer at the beginning of every episode with respect to mental health. This is going to be more of a content disclaimer. This isn't going to be totally not safe for work, but this is definitely going to be one of our more PG-13 episodes, dare I say. So we're going to bleep some stuff, but if you're at all squeamish, or if you are in an environment where you really don't want to subject children to the possibility of swears, or you just work for a really uptight boss, this may not be the episode to listen to on your speakers. So just giving you that little caveat before we begin. The other thing that we are very excited to announce is we are going live today, as of this episode, with our Patreon. We're very excited about this. It gives us an opportunity to really expand the show in different ways, and a way for us to be able to grow the show in different avenues and provide you, the listeners, with additional rewards and incentives to, come on in and listen to the show. Just different ways to connect with us. And in return, we get to give you more of what you like, more of what works for you, the listening audience, some really cool rewards that we have planned out. Doc, like I said, I'm just super stoked for what this means for our listening audience.
Yeah, I'm just glad that you won't starve anymore.
Yeah, I'm so cold. I'm so cold. My blood itches.
Don't worry. We just really want to give an opportunity for all of you out there to, just connect with us a bit more than you already have. This is going to be something that I think when you see what we're offering, you're definitely not going to be disappointed.
Yeah. So, Johnny, tell them what they've won. So we've got right now 4 levels, and we'll tell them to you now. And then you can obviously go to our Patreon page, which is patreon.com/capesonthecouch. And the 4 levels that we have, the first level is just $1 a month for a thank you and a shout out. So every month or every episode, we'll be saying, hey, by the way, thanks to so-and-so for, your Patreon support. We appreciate you. You guys are super awesome. And at $3 a month, you will get early access to the show, because I tend to post these to the Libsyn website on Monday nights. So by Monday night, the show is already technically uploaded to the site. Now, it doesn't go live to the various platforms until Wednesday morning at 8 a.m., but you, as the Patreon subscriber, will get that early access, and I will send that link out to all of those $3 level subscribers. You will also get every month a blooper reel from some of the stuff that didn't quite make the cut for any given episode, and it will be culled from the various screw ups or flubs during the episode proper, during the skit, before the episode starts, afterwards. We have a lot of stuff to play with.
Yeah, you can also rename this to Dr. Issues Clearly Has Issues.
Or that. So the $5 a month, this is a really, really fun one. This is where everyone who pays $5 a month will get access to a longer, uncensored version of the skit at the end of every episode. We have really had a lot of fun coming up with ideas and ways to incorporate a lot more humor. Particularly for somebody like Deadpool, we had a blast coming up with just the back and forth on the skit. And Deadpool, particularly as a character, gives you so much to play with that it's really just fun. We spent like an hour and a half probably just scripting what ultimately amounts to like a 7-minute skit, because we just said, oh, what about this? Oh, and then we can go here and then we can do this with it. And it was so much fun scripting this with Doc.
Yep, I definitely enjoyed playing with Deadpool as much as Deadpool loves playing with him. Okay, you know what? I'm going to stop right there.
Yeah, we're going to leave that in the episode. But, in other episodes that may have made the blooper reel, or that's the not safe for work stuff we're talking about. Also, if you're on the $5 tier, if you send us any questions about any of our characters in advance, we will guarantee that we will answer them on the show. So, and we tend to post about 3 episodes in advance who our characters are going to be. So we will absolutely make sure that if you are on the $5 tier and you send us an email, say, hey, I see you're doing an episode about, Mr. Freeze, that we will definitely answer whatever questions you have about Mr. Freeze or whatever the character in case may be. And for the $10 a month tier, you get to pick the character that you want us to do for one of the episodes that month. And we will answer any and all questions that you have about the character. So if you are a really big Poison Ivy fan, you can give us $10. We will do an entire episode on Poison Ivy, and we will answer any questions that you have about Poison Ivy. To the reader who wanted us to do X, you want us to do X, we will do all the research on X, and we will answer any questions you've got. Whatever character you have, this gives the listeners a chance to chime in with some suggestions, and it also kind of takes the edge off of us a little bit and having to come up with, oh, well, who should we do this month? Who should we do that month? We have a lot of fun trying to figure it out. But if you guys can do the job for us, hey, we're certainly not going to complain.
Yeah, I think I'll label this one, You Have the Power.
So if you're He-Man, does that make me cringer?
Yeah.
Sweet. As long as I'm not She-Ra or, Orko.
What are you knocking Orko for?
Dude, Orko, never mind. You know what? I can't even entirely hate, because I saw the movie back when I was a kid. That was like, 1987? I was 5 years old. And my father took me to the movies, and I was disappointed because Orko was not in the film. It was that little midget dude. What the hell was his name? And he had that little key thing that like played, like a synthesizer. I watched it. I watched that movie recently, like about 3-4 years ago. I watched that on New Year's Eve with a vodka. Oh, man. The Masters of the Universe film, to this day, if you ask Frank Langella what is his favorite role that he's ever played in film, he will tell you it was Skeletor. True story. And you could see it in every frame of the film that man is in, that he is having the time of his life. It's amazing there was any scenery left because he chewed it all.
I have no idea what parts are going to be kept or what parts are going to be cut from that diatribe you just gave.
It's all staying in.
Oh my God.
Our listening audience deserves to hear how crappy and amazing the Masters of the Universe film is.
Not in the Deadpool episode. Moving along.
Maybe we could do an episode on, Skeletor or Tilo or something.
This is why we need your help. We need your help to make sure that Anthony stays on the rails with these characters. If you give us one, I guarantee you, he is incredible. He is a detective when it comes to finding out information on everyone. But unfortunately, I just gave an example of how I let him go completely off the rails, and now we have to recover with, thankfully, a character that has plenty of material.
I was going to say, if ever there was an episode in which I could go off the rails and still have it be within the context and scope of the character, it's Deadpool. Let's not kid ourselves here. Deadpool as a concept is off the rails. So that's a perfect segue, I guess, into the background. So Deadpool was created by Rob Liefeld and Fabian Nicieza, New Mutants number 98, February 1991. Side note, Rob Liefeld charges, I think, $20 for an autograph on the cover of this book because he knows that it just skyrockets the value of it. Whereas I walked up to him at Comic-Con and asked him to sign a Moon Knight book that he had done the artwork for. And he was just like, oh, yeah, sure. And signed it. And I was on my merry way.
Well, that just shows you the difference in value of someone like Deadpool versus someone like Moon Knight. We did an episode on him, right?
Yes.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure I got it right.
It took everything in my power not to ask Rob Liefeld, so why can't you draw feet? But anyway, Deadpool was created. It was clearly a knockoff of Deathstroke because Deathstroke is Slade Wilson and Deadpool is Wade Wilson. And where do you do the Deathstroke? In the Deadpool. You know, it's just clearly an indication. It was this 90s idea of just these really edgy and dark characters with, you know, misspelled names or, you know, I think in the first episode or the first issue of the Deadpool book, they're taking on Strife with a Y. And I was just like, wow, this is just gritted teeth and six-fingered hands and no feet or, you know, women without spines or any semblance of proper anatomy. It was the 90s. And if you're a comic fan, you know what I mean when I say it was the 90s.
And we grew up in that era, so I don't know how much that warped us.
Yeah, I think it had an impact, certainly on a lot of artists. But anyway, so Deadpool began actually as a villain, and he was attacking Cable and the New Mutants, or he was hired to attack Cable and the New Mutants. I think Tolliver was the one who hired him, if I remember correctly. Then he joins X-Force, and he begins making some recurring appearances in other books. Then he gets his own miniseries in 1994. Then he gets a series in 1997, and this was written by Joe Kelly. And this is where the character takes off. Everything that you know and understand and love about Deadpool to this day started in that Joe Kelly series. He really was the one who gave birth to the character as we know it.
Before this point, I'm just going to be totally honest. I was not a big fan of Deadpool. I basically kind of put him along with all the other assassins, mercenaries, you know, run-of-the-mill, you know, insert character killer number 42, whatever. And to see someone with personality, with some pizzazz, that really struck me. And I knew I had to continue to follow this character for as long as I lived.
Oh, he's got character and pizzazz coming out his ass. Joe Kelly series is where he introduces Blind Al, he introduces Weasel, and he introduces the thing that probably Deadpool is most known for at this point, and that is the fourth wall breaking. The utter and complete destruction of any semblance of character not knowing that he's in a comic book. Deadpool at this point is fully aware he's a comic. He narrates his own stories. He talks about characters as if they're not there to the reader, except the character is standing off on the side like, who are you talking to? This really just was one of the key things about Deadpool as a character that has survived the next 20 years of the character. And I really think it's probably his defining trait is his medium awareness, if you will, again, to borrow a TV tropes phrase, his medium awareness and knowledge that he's in the book.
Yep. You will love the yellow text bubbles. You will love them.
Well, see, the yellow boxes were introduced by Gail Simone. That was after the Christopher Priest run. Christopher Priest kind of really ramped up the fourth wall breaking. And then Gail Simone came along and she introduced the little yellow boxes that Deadpool could see and talk to. Every other book, you have the little yellow boxes because that's the editor or that's just the narrator telling what's happening and the characters can't see them. That's just for the reader's understanding. Deadpool knows they're there. He interacts with them. He comments on them. He responds to them as though they are a separate character within the story. And that's really where he just goes, woo. So that's in the Gail Simone run. Then he teams up with Cable in a buddy cop type series where Cable is the gruff, no nonsense, badass by the book guy, and Deadpool's the wacky, hey, let's just do whatever crazy stuff. And it worked. That was the really amazing thing, was that the Cable and Deadpool series worked. This wasn't peanut butter and chocolate. This was peanut butter and gravel. And yet somehow they made granola? I don't know. Or I don't know. Something that was edible. Delicious, maybe?
Wow. Yeah, I don't know where that analogy was going, but I do agree with you that it worked.
By the way, I totally forgot to even mention this when we were doing the introduction of the episode. We're doing Deadpool because this week, Deadpool 2 comes out, featuring Cable. Josh Brolin as Cable, not Thanos. That was a couple weeks ago. This week, he's Cable. We see the return of Negasonic Teenage Warhead. Colossus is back. Dopinder is back. I'm very excited about Dopinder. And also Peter. I very much want to see what Peter is capable of. But I digress. Let's go back to the background. I apologize. It was just one of those things that I realized, 20 minutes into the episode. Oh, Jesus, I forgot to mention why we're doing Deadpool, because of the movie.
Yeah, it's almost as if, some of this is not exactly going according to plan, which is pretty much the summary of everything Deadpool is about. Anyway.
So in 2010, he joins the Uncanny X-Force, and this is the Rick Remender, Jerome Pena series. And this is where we kind of see a more moralized version of the character. I really liked this run. I thought it gave a different spin on the character. I thought it provided him with some depth. And given that he had been the jokester for 10 plus years, to see a Deadpool that wasn't overly serious, but had some gravitas and understanding, I really think that a Remender solo Deadpool series would be a fascinating read. But as it stands, he just wrote him in the ensemble book. But I thought this was, for my money, one of the best versions of Deadpool that I've ever read was the Remender Uncanny X-Force run. And I know, Doc, you weren't particularly enamored with it.
I felt like it put them back into the stereotypical boxes that we see heroes or even anti-heroes. I get it. You want to build some depth. That's fine, but keep the breadth. That's the part that I felt was lacking. Just an opinion.
Well, again, you're certainly entitled. Opinions are like assholes. Everyone has one, and yours stinks.
Yes, I definitely want to continue with this podcast where my co-host insults me. Thanks.
Again, it fits with the tone of the episode. So at this point now, in the late 2000s, early 2010s, this is where we see Deadpool become the new Wolverine, essentially, where he's in books because they sell. Somehow, Deadpool became this cultural phenomenon, the icon of the Hot Topic generation, and just this symbol of, hey, I'm wacky, I do whatever I want, woohoo! And, lols, I'm totally random.
Yeah, I think a part of that is not coincidental that it's the same thing that happened with Wolverine for decades, which is you can do what you want with the characters. Like, they're not the same at all in terms of personality, but you add basically a healing factor so you can kill them off, bring them back. You can have them randomly intersect with something, show how powerful a villain is by having them just totally slash them apart. It's just, to me, it was an easy trope. That's why they became that popular in terms of writing them. Now, in terms of popularity, outside, yeah, I think that was kind of obvious.
So it just, for me, like I said, became a situation where every week I would go to the comic shop and, Deadpool's guesting in this book. Deadpool has a new miniseries here. Let's get Deadpool Core, and Deadpool kills the Marvel Universe, and Deadpool Marvel Zombies, and Deadpool this and Deadpool that. And it was just like, I get it. He's funny. He's random. Just enough. Again, for me, I thought at least when Wolverine did it, it was sort of tangentially related to the stories because Wolverine was the powerful and the loner. So it was a situation where they were forcing him to interact with characters he wouldn't normally interact with. For Deadpool, it's just, oh, hey, he sells. And I know that's why they did it for Wolverine. But for Deadpool, it's, hey, he sells and he's funny and we can do whatever we want with him and it fits or it works. And I'm using air quotes here. I know you can't see that, but a situation where they just said, oh, let's just have him say or do some outlandish, random, crazy thing just because it has no semblance of relation to the story, just because they wanted to stick him in the book because they knew that the Hot Topic fans would go and say, oh, I need this because I have to have everything Deadpool.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that.
So in his solo series, he gets cured of his healing factor. He loses his scarred face. Then in I think this was Marvel Now, he gets a new series by Brian Posehn and Gerry Duggan. Side note, I saw it, Brian Posehn once in the lobby of a hotel/casino in Las Vegas. This is going back to about 2004, 2005. I happened to be walking by and I was like, oh my God, that's Brian Posehn, because he's very distinctive looking with the beard/goatee and the glasses. Just very distinctive look. I didn't go up to him and say anything, but I was just like, wow, that's cool.
You really are using this episode as a way to just constantly block any tangent checks I would usually do, right?
Well, essentially, yes. You have to understand, for the majority of the time, this is how my brain normally operates.
Oh, I'm well
get
aware.
A thought, and it just pops in, and I go, oh, by the way, this is another thing. Most of the time, I tamp that down because it's not related to the character. In this instance, though, I could say whatever the fuck I want. The new series by Brian Posehn and Gerry Duggan, he ends up getting married. I think it was his third marriage overall. He gets married to the queen of the underworld, and he discovers he has a kid. He's got a daughter, Deadpool the dad, which also led to a very funny moment in the Hawkeye book where he had to take his daughter trick-or-treating, and except he was the one who really wanted the candy, and then he and Clint have to go and save some stuff, and it was very entertaining. This was during the Hawkeye run, the Matt Fraction Hawkeye run. Very, very funny issue. In Deadpool number 250, during the Secret Wars event, Deadpool dies because the incursions happen, the Earths merge, and he actually feels peaceful with it because he gets to die, which is something he hasn't really gotten to experience with any sort of permanency because of his healing factor. So the all new, all different Marvel comes along. Deadpool's back. Surprise, surprise. And he joins the Avengers Unity Squad. And then he ends up siding with Steve Rogers, Captain America, when Steve goes all Hydra because of the Cosmic Cube. And he does this out of respect and loyalty to Cap because that's one of the few characters that Deadpool can say that he really truly respects. And I think that's a thing that happens with Steve throughout the Marvel universe. But to get somebody like Deadpool to say, if Cap is doing this, it must be right, even though he was a member of Hydra for this particular storyline, he ends up having a crisis of conscience and then he walks away. But again, I thought it was an interesting development for the character to have that moment where he joins Steve because he has that respect for him, and then to say something is wrong here, and even though you're Captain America, I can't be part of this.
Yeah, I'm going to completely ignore that, and I'm going to go to one of my favorite moments of Deadpool's characterization, where the Earth is pretty much being overrun by extraterrestrials that have powerful mind control, and the United States specifically is using Captain America as the icon that's going to stop them, but he ends up controlled himself, and Deadpool kicks him in the groin in a game of Rochambeau.
I remember that. I mean, we could sit here and honestly just go back and forth with our favorite Deadpool moments, you know, where he show Ryukin's Kitty Pride, and then he's like, yay, yay, fighty, fighty, stabby time. You know, that's an entertaining moment.
Or, you know, when he basically gets Bullseye's spine completely crushed because he had to save someone that was one of his enemies. I mean, oh yeah, I mean, you know, it's fun. Deadpool is just such a wonderful character to talk about.
Or when he defeats Taskmaster because Taskmaster has studied his fighting style, so his entire response to that is, then I'm just going to be totally random, and oh, you don't expect me to do this, and you don't expect me to do that, and kick to the groin, and then I'm going to kick your ass and beat you down. That, again, is the freedom that a character like Deadpool gives you for writing purposes. But by the same token, it's a problem because there's very little in terms of consistency across iterations and across writers. And that's why you can have the difference of a Remender Deadpool versus a Joe Kelly Deadpool versus the Gerry Duggan Deadpool. There's not a whole lot in terms of consistency across his history. In some semblance, that makes it difficult for us to get into some of the issues that he has because there's very little, dare I say, there's not nothing, but there's very little that is consistent across his portrayals and across his characterizations. But one of them, and we mentioned this earlier, is that the fourth wall breaking is viewed in universe as a schizophrenia or suffering from some sort of psychosis because he's interacting with the little yellow boxes or the reader or whomever. And the rest of the characters do not have this medium awareness. And as a result, think he's just batshit crazy.
Schizophrenia can have multiple facets. I mean, the number one thing that everyone thinks about is hallucinations, meaning you're hearing things or seeing things that other people aren't experiencing in reality. And the way that Deadpool's portrayed, we would call these auditory hallucinations. There are voices that he's interacting with that clearly no one else can. So that is the hallmark that people know of schizophrenia, but there are so many other aspects. There's disorganization in terms of their thought process. There is, at times, an inability to relate to the people around them. For some people, a lack of motivation almost appears like a depression where they simply just don't have any interest in doing anything. It can be paranoia. It can be delusions, meaning the thoughts that the person is happening. They're not separate voices. They're their own person's thoughts that are causing problems for them because they're not based in reality. So all of those things together can be schizophrenia. But specifically, when you have something not based in reality, psychosis definitely fits. Deadpool definitely fits. That's a very broad category, though, mainly because it can be caused by so many things. What are the things that Deadpool has gone through? I mean, didn't he go through the whole Weapon X thing?
And you know, we neglected to mention that in his background, obviously the Weapon X, the cancer, and et cetera, et cetera. But again, there's so much to Deadpool that, similar to like Loki, we could have spent a half an hour just on his background because of the sheer number of appearances that he's had. So we tried to boil that down. We probably should have mentioned the cancer and the Weapon X, but it is what it is.
Well, I'm going to run with that a little bit anyway because it's relevant to the psychosis. Medical conditions can lead to psychotic symptoms. So, for example, if you've had a family member or you yourself have been in the hospital and you don't remember bits and pieces of what happened, or you remember things very vividly and later on people say that doesn't make sense. Well, okay, that was a medical condition messing with your brain that led to those reactions. Okay, that's one possibility. It could be a schizophrenia where it really is a group of other symptoms that is pervasive and will be, for the most part, a lifetime occurrence that usually starts in young adulthood, although it could be very early in life too. Or it could be a part of emotional problems. It can be a part of depression. Sometimes people actually hear voices telling them that they're no good or that, you know, they should do something to damage themselves. That's a possibility as well. Or it can be a part of bipolar disorder. So not just the depressive side, but the incredibly high energy and irritable or angry side of things, in which case that person may become grandiose, meaning they think they're God, Jesus, or they have accomplished things that they really haven't. Or in this case, with the psychosis we're talking about, they're going to hear a lot of voices telling them how wonderful things are. By the way, except for that one part, and you should get rid of them. Yeah, it can cause a lot of damage that way, too. So psychosis isn't just psychosis. It can be many, many different things. And the way Deadpool is written, it really could be any one of those things.
Well, who the fuck are you? You're not Mario Lopez.
No, we're capes on the couch.
I was told to come here because this was Extra. We were going to talk about my movie. And I thought, Pooley, why would Extra be shooting out of a duplex? Maybe they're hard up for money like Fox.
So I show up and find you two chuckle fucks sitting here with microphones.
We're a podcast about the mental health issues of comic book characters.
And people actually listen to this shit?
Yes, actually, they do. We have lots of fans.
Sure, oscillating and sealing. I bet you love getting blown by all of them.
Okay, this has gone far enough. Look, do you want to wait until we're ready for you?
Yeah, sure, the flight to Vancouver doesn't leave for a few more hours. You got any chimichangas?
No, but I think there's some taco meat in the fridge. Help yourself.
All right, I'm gonna go watch some TV. And if you see any strange charges on your cable bill, just send it to Fox. They're bleeding money anyway. What's another $400?
Okay. That was a thing.
So, help me out here. We were at,
You were talking Psychosis.
Okay. How fitting. So, the point being, there are multiple possibilities with psychosis. Many people live with it. Okay, it's not something that has to be a situation where your life falls apart, but it needs to be recognized. And that's the part where things get a little tricky. Because as far as I know, people like to consider themselves always based in reality. So when that gets tested, oh boy, you get some backlash usually. But every person, at some point has to come to terms with it.
Well, I feel like that was a combination of almost the discussion of Deadpool's fourth wall breaking, as well as maybe getting into a little bit of the real world application of treatment, not necessarily in the treatment sense, but just in a real world grounding of the issues that Deadpool faces, I guess, to some extent. I don't really know, how you would do that. It is kind of viewed in universe as schizophrenia or a psychosis. And I do know that at least on one occasion, he has been to a doctor's office, and it turned out that the doctor was actually a pedophile, and Deadpool takes him out because he understood that I think the little girl killed herself from the shame of being molested, and Deadpool's like, yeah, that one's for free.
Yeah, that was pretty bad. I'm going to turn it around and point out that he's also been seen by a doctor. I believe it was Dr. Bong?
Yes, Dr. Bong.
Yes.
With a bell for a head.
Yeah, basically told him he needed to fight Wolverine. Surprise, surprise. So, once again, we take this from I was going to say sublime to the ridiculous, but it's the ridiculous to the ridiculous and sad.
Or the sad to the sad and ridiculous to just the ridiculous.
Touché.
Moral flexibility and ambiguity. Deadpool is a character that, and I just described an instance where he killed the pedophile doctor pro bono. And another part of the Remender Uncanny X-Force run is that he refused to cash the checks that he was being given as a member of the Uncanny X-Force team. He wasn't getting paid for this stuff. And he was very much upset when Phantom X killed the, was it Kid Apocalypse or was it Kid the Kang the Conqueror? It was a child version of somebody, I forget. But Phantom X took him out, and Deadpool was like, I draw the line there. And everybody's like, you have a line? And he's like, yeah, and it's killing kids.
Yep. But bestiality jokes, making fun of the elderly, crossing the line with all sorts of cultural boundaries. Yeah, that's all well and good.
Yeah, dressing up like Jean Grey because he's a mutant, therefore that makes him an X-Man. He's an X-Man, therefore he needs to dress like Jean Grey in her original green short skirt Marvel Girl costume. That's perfectly acceptable.
Right. I was going to
say the moral ambiguity and flexibility, I think, is something that the character has gone through. And again, it depends on the writer, but I don't even know, again, how you would describe that. It's kind of difficult to discuss because it is so storyline specific. He's as moral as the story needs him to be.
And I do think that speaks to the situations that people in general face themselves in. Basically, you make the best decision with the information you have at hand. Obviously, a person that has some emotional concerns is not always going to make the same decision that someone else who has a bit more grounded reality would. But that doesn't mean that they're not trying. In Deadpool's case, I'm not sure how I would gauge that. I mean, especially when he's in groups of other heroes or villains. I mean, I feel like he does whatever would set him apart. Not in a narcissistic way, but he seems to be the type of character that wants to shake things up. In other words, the worst thing that could ever happen to him would be to be ignored. That's the opposite of what he wants. He doesn't care if he's loved or hated, as long as you're on one end of the spectrum or the other. But if you ignore him, that is disastrous.
So he's the ultimate attention whore.
To bring it to modern pop culture references, yes.
Well, no, not necessarily modern pop culture references, just the lexicon and the language that everyone can understand is he's an attention whore is what it boils down to.
Shameless. Absolutely shameless. Which is also a very good show, by the way. If any of you have, Showtime, please.
I was going to say it's an okay Billy Joel song covered by Garth Brooks.
Wow. It's amazing the things that we're getting away with because we're talking about Deadpool.
Yeah. Like I said, the character just sort of encourages this random tangential nonsense. The last thing I want to touch on is the loyalty to certain characters and people can cost him. And we see this in the Captain America Hydra scenario where he follows Cap to the degree that it costs him, his daughter turns away from him. He has friends that abandon him, all because he's loyal to Steve Rogers, because he believes in Steve so much, because Steve is many, many times, and the vast majority of the time, he's the paragon of morality in the Marvel Universe. And Deadpool believes, well, if Captain America is doing this, then it must be the right thing to do, even if it costs him everybody else. And we see that happen on a couple of occasions where he has this loyalty to characters, and that can lead to problems. And Doc, to the extent that you can, again, tying in that Deadpool does what he wants when he wants, loyalty to individuals or to ideas at the cost of everything else can backfire.
And I'm going to tie this back to our first issue of Psychosis. Sometimes people recognize that they need the grounding and they will do anything they can to achieve it. In Deadpool's case, Steve Rogers is a great example. Cable is another, where you see such a vast difference in how they handle day-to-day life. Deadpool latches on to that because that's something that he can, I don't want to say mimic, but he could start to incorporate it and see that it works. He's been around these people, and he basically says, okay, if my way for some reason isn't working, I know I can always rely on this other person. You mentioned the danger of what it can cost you. Sometimes people make these attachments without the other person knowing it, because the attachment itself is not based in reality. I'm actually going to bring this to an example that I've experienced in my own work. There are times I've had interactions with patients. It didn't matter if the interaction was positive or negative. For some reason, I don't have the rational reason. For some reason, they made my interaction the strongest connection that it could be in their lives. And in those cases, I started receiving phone calls saying that I need to clear them with a doctor's note so that they can work again. I needed to go out with them to a game because they said that if I mention my name to the ticket provider, that they would get a discount. These things are not based in reality, but for some reason they needed that sort of connection, that personal bond that they couldn't get anywhere else. Unfortunately, when it's random like that, the person is usually going to, meaning the person that's of attention, is going to try and give them that reality check. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know, how you got this idea. And depending on how that interaction goes, it can be shattered. Meaning the person that has this idea doesn't even know where to begin. It can be through rage. It can be through depression. It can be through worse psychosis, whatever the case may be. That's usually how I've seen it act out in real life. In comic books, there's only so much you can do in panels. So you need the character around, so you're not just going to throw them away. So you're going to end up seeing the consequences of other people. In this case, fine, daughter, friends, family, whatever the case may be. So it's not usually treated exactly the same, but the point still gets across. You know, you put all your chips on the table, you just bet it all on 00 and you didn't get it.
Well, that's a common trope, I think, in media and in fiction in general, is you get the stalker or the one-sided relationship or the situation where a character says, you were nice to me, therefore you are going to be my new best friend. Ralph Wiggum and Lisa Simpson. I choose you. And then he goes to further and further lengths to the point that she eventually, you know, yells at him in front of everybody. And if you pause the video at this exact moment, you could see the exact moment where his heart breaks. And then he bent his Wookiee. But that's the kind of connection that I think Deadpool gets with some characters, because in some ways he's on that same mental level or emotional level as a Ralph Wiggum.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I'm a Star Wars.
Wow. I think it goes back to imprinting, and I know we've mentioned that in previous episodes. I'll be honest, I don't remember which one. But yeah, you need someone to attach to in life. That's just the way humans are. If you go totally alone, then you end up with, well, first of all, in comics, you end up with really boring stories. But in life, you end up basically a drifter. And that's not always a bad thing if it's intentional, but...
Like Kane in Kung Fu.
You really are taking this to a high level this time,
I figure these happen all the time. There are myriad moments in episodes where I want to interject with something and I sit on it and I squash it. This is the result of 9 episodes of repressing the urge to comment with pop culture references and things of that nature, because, again, they're apropos for this episode. I don't mean digging around in the dirt with farm implements, and that's a Steve Mongo McMichael quote.
I'm going to change the disclaimer. Or no, I'm going to add to the disclaimer. It's not just viewer discretion is advised. It's Anthony's going to do whatever the hell he wants. And whether or not you listen to the rest of this is what I've had to put up with for over half of my life. Not that I don't add my own, okay? But this is incredible.
I was going to say, let's not say that this is just one-sided. You give as good as you get, son.
Oh, wow. Ay, ay, ay. All right, so I'm going to take over the reins here a bit, and we've talked about the issues enough. We can probably go on for another 45 minutes, but let's go to treatment. So, in universe, allow me to say that everything is fair game, because why do I care what happens to Deadpool? He's been killed I don't know how many times at this point. So I really can't do that much damage to him. My goodness. He's talking to people that I can't even interact with, and in theory, if they interact back, they can just eliminate me. That kind of sucks. If there was a way I could do some sort of therapy where I could do therapy on the writer, that's where I would start. You know, that really would probably be the most effective thing.
So you need to sit down on a couch with Gerry Duggan then.
Hey, whatever works, man. Now, I don't know exactly how I'm going to do that, but still be able to interact with Deadpool, because really, you're always supposed to keep the patient in the foreground, not the background. But also, if patients have, severe psychotic illness, let's say with mood disturbances to go along with it, and we've seen that from Deadpool, then electroconvulsive therapy, that works really well. Fine, let's get Thor in here. All right. There's something called transcranial magnetic stimulation for depression. All right, Magneto, you're up. Let's get all hands on deck here. I want to figure out what on earth are we going to do with this guy? Because he's so incredibly unpredictable, so incredibly random, that whatever happens, happens. I might as well throw the kitchen sink at him. And I mean that. I want to throw the kitchen sink at him.
You could.
Yeah. Honestly, let's go for it, man. Huh.
So, out of universe, we touched on it a little bit earlier. So someone like this would be schizophrenic and or psychotic. And I don't mean that in the pejorative sense. I mean that in the literal suffering from psychosis. How do you treat that?
Okay. I know a lot of people don't like to hear this, and I know I don't usually focus on it, but they're called antipsychotics for a reason. There has been plenty of literature to show that category of medications helps specifically with hallucinations. So that's the first thing I would start with. Having that conversation with someone who's never been through this, though, can be very difficult, because the last thing that a person wants to think is somehow they're out of touch with reality. So it can be a very sensitive topic. I usually focus on the positive. Whatever's going on, it's clear that you, or more likely the people around you, are trying to help you do better. So this is a tool in the toolbox. Let's get started. The problem with these medications is we haven't found a clean one yet, and I'm using air quotes with that. By that, I mean, we all know medications have side effects. We've all seen all the infomercials and commercials about these things. We've seen the magazine ads. They're all true. The rate at which some of these side effects happen sound exaggerated in the advertisements, but they're real. They're there. So you have to be honest with the patient as to what to expect, because many times it's a transitional problem with side effects. Because the second that one thing goes wrong in someone that already has a very tenuous grip on reality, they're basically going to say, okay, well, all of it is horrible and it's wrong and terrible and there's no way I can do this. You have to really guide them. So that's the first line. The other part to this is incredible amounts of support. You need a team with this. You don't want them to drift, because it's very common for people with psychosis to kind of go into another world. They're just not talking on your level. And the more it happens, the more difficult it is to deal with things on a day-by-day basis. So that's why we have treatment teams, for example, that do what we call directly observed therapy or assertive community treatment. It means that they actually go to where the person is located. They go to their house and they see them take their medication, or they have a therapy session with them for a few minutes. They talk with them. They ask them how they're doing with their basics, how they're doing with shopping, how they're doing with their sleep patterns, how they're interacting with family, all of those things. We make sure that they have the basics down because other people are looking out for them. And I mean this in a professional manner. There's also peer support. Obviously, they need to know they're not alone in this, because often they feel like everybody in the world is wrong except for them. That can be pretty dangerous, because then you feel like, wow, I need to do something for everybody else because, I don't know how it got all screwed up, but clearly I'm the one that's right. It's difficult to not overwhelm the person when you're pointing out some of the inconsistencies in what they're saying or how they're acting.
So you want to give folks like this a focus. You want to keep them on task, very hands-on oriented, task-oriented, to show them the immediate results and build from there.
Exactly.
So would someone like this be institutionalized? Or is that term even utilized? I mean, obviously, someone like this has to be under observation, certainly in the beginning of therapy. And if we're introducing medication, you want to ensure that they're being given proper dosages and that they're being monitored for vitals, et cetera. But talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, that term, even institutionalization, it's incredibly pejorative at this point. But let's be honest, and I'm going to do a little bit of a history lesson here. For the longest time, not just for psychosis, but for many mental illnesses, including things that aren't really mental illnesses, were treated by saying, lock them up and throw away the key. That is cruel, that's inhumane, and that is not done anymore, period. Having said that, there are varying levels that a person can receive treatment if it's considered necessary. The hospital is still one of the ways that is well known and at this point fairly well utilized when a person is going through an acute psychotic break and it's considered necessary. They're brief. They're usually a span of anywhere from 3 days to a week. If a person needs a higher level of care than that, then it means that they'll remain in a hospital longer, and those extended facilities will be able to manage them for quite some time. It could be weeks, could be months, could be over a year. But the point is, they always have the goal of the person becoming more independent and ultimately being able to be in a less restrictive setting outside of the hospital. There are residential facilities where people have their own apartments, they have their own budgets, they do most of the things that they're supposed to do themselves with the anticipation that they'll continue with treatment on a daily basis. There are so many variations to this, thanks to, in part, the medication breakthroughs that happened so many years ago, that, in all honesty, there are some people that feel like the pendulum swung a little too far, because the transition from when there were long-term lifetime institutions to being out in the wide open world led to a huge spike in the homeless rate. Who would have thought that people that were used to a certain structure every day for their adult lives would have difficulty transitioning to now having nothing? I mean, you don't need to harp on psychosis for that. That would be difficult for anyone.
Absolutely.
I believe that's called college. Just saying.
All right. Well, I knew I was using institutionalized incorrectly. I know that term is no longer used, but, all I wanted was a Pepsi.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, my.
Yeah, I went there. It should be like a running tally of how many pop culture references I've made in this episode alone.
Yeah. I got a feeling when we get popular enough and people look back on this episode, we're going to find a version of this on YouTube with someone adding ding to every single reference.
Like the It Hits the Fan episode of South Park.
Exactly.
So, I guess now's... oh, boy. In nome di Patria, Filii, Spiritus Sancti. Now is when we...
Oh, my God.
Yeah, I went... Well, listen, we're going to need it. We're going to need all the help we can get. Now, I guess, is when Deadpool is on Dr. Issues' couch. Deadpool? Oh, God, I didn't think you were serious about the charges.
Again?
All right, that's it. Doc, I'm out. He's all yours.
Yeah, but you're not really going anywhere, are you?
All right, let's get down to business.
That's what I was doing before you interrupted me.
Look, I have a busy schedule, so if we can just finish...
Yeah, fine by me, Doc. You might want to look away, though. You're kind of in the splash zone.
That's not what I meant. I swear to God, I'm not a violent man. But I'll cut it off, only because I know it'll grow back.
Well, turnabout is fair play, Doc. You want me to use B or Arthur?
Fine. Can you at least put it away while we're talking?
Now I know why they call you people head shrinks. I'm kind of amazed you can have a psychiatrist office without a fourth wall.
Well, like you said, we don't have Fox's budget. Look, I know this is your shtick, but is there something you want to talk about?
Well, since you asked... I have to say there's something on my mind for a while now, and I haven't been able to find anyone suitable to listen to me.
Okay, what's troubling you?
Well, a while back, I was betrayed and lied to, and it cut me deep to my core.
Oh.
I mean, I know I'm not always the best person in the world, but I feel like there's a base level of respect and dignity that every person deserves, and I was denied even that.
Huh.
And the worst part is, I wasn't even given a legitimate explanation. I called, I texted, I wrote emails, everything went unanswered.
Wow, this really impacted you.
So ever since then, I've kind of had some trust issues, and I have difficulty even looking people in the eye.
If you don't mind my asking, what was it that happened?
I don't know if I can even talk about it. It's still kind of fresh.
Well, look, please try, okay? This is a safe space. No judgment.
Are you sure?
Yeah, you can tell me anything.
Why wasn't Firefly given a second season?
I know, right? Wait a minute.
I mean, I really can't complain. It kind of freed up Marina Baccarin for me, and clearly that's worked out.
Man, I really thought we were having a moment there.
Yeah, don't you hate it when something builds up to an unsatisfying climax? Now you know how my balls felt about 5 minutes ago. They're bluer than Papa Smurf.
That's it. Get the f*** out of here.
What?
You heard me. Get your wacko Canadian ass out of my office.
Well, you don't have to be rude about it. Sorry.
Look, just get out. Send Anthony back in here.
Fine. Hey, Anthony. Oh, look, there's a mirror in the hallway. Hey, the doc wants you back in there. And put your dick away. Apparently he doesn't really like that.
Whoa. Is everything okay in here?
I have never been so... Flames... The side of my face... Just... It's that Clue reference.
Yes, I got it. I got Madeline Kahn. It's okay.
I had to vent. I'm sorry. Oh, wow.
It's all right. Breathe. Inhale and dehail. Deep cleansing breaths. So that's just about, I guess, going to wrap it up for this episode.
Hey, real fast, do you validate parking?
What? No, it's free street parking outside.
And who the fuck did I give my keys to? God damn it, now I need an Uber. Oh, and sorry about the stains on the couch. I had to finish. You might want to replace the cushions. Yeah, and the pillows. Yeah, and the curtains.
Get out! Well, I guess it's a good thing we've got the Patreon, because it seems like I'm going to have a large cleaning bill and possibly some upholstery to replace.
I can't feel my face right now. Everything is just disappearing in front of me. I don't even know what I'm supposed to do. Why did we have to do this episode? Why do we have to deal with that man?
I was going to say, I don't feel so good, but I don't know.
Too soon.
Too soon. I'm sorry. It wrote itself. It really did. You started it. I was just following up.
Yeah. Well, at this point, I feel like he was playing me for a fool.
Yeah, he was playing everybody for a fool. And playing with himself, too.
So you finally finished the joke that I started so long ago. I hope that it was satisfying.
I started a joke that started the whole world crying. Oh, if I'd only seen that the joke was on me.
I think we've jumped so far off the rails that we've ended up back onto a different set of rails, and those rails have now bent, and we're barely on those rails.
That is a damn good song. I miss the early Bee Gees, like before Saturday Night Fever. They were a hell of a songwriter. They really could, man. And Andy Gibb, I would have been very curious to see what Andy Gibb's career would have been like had he not gotten addicted to drugs.
Okay, I thought Deadpool broke me, but you really did it. You just... I'm done.
Again, if ever there was an episode for all of the pop culture references to come out, this is it. But it has to end. All good things have to come to an end at some point. And so we've reached our conclusion. So as we said at the top of the show, we've got a brand new Patreon. Please check it out. We've got 4 different levels with rewards. Patreon.com/capes on the couch. $1, $3, $5, and $10. You can get a thank you. You can get early access and a blooper reel. You can get a longer, uncensored version of the skit and get some questions answered. Or you can pick the character. You can pick one character a month for us to do and ask questions. So that's, again, patreon.com/capes on the couch. We're looking, our first goal right now is just $17 a month. That will cover our hosting fees on Libsyn for the website and for everything else. So that's the first goal that we're shooting for. And then maybe we could get some new, better equipment and build from there. Then hopefully the new equipment will help me with editing and just simplify some of the technological stuff that we have to do for the show here.
Yeah, between my poor speaking skills and Anthony's tangents, we keep him really busy.
Yeah, it's a beast to edit these episodes, to do some of the production and the little sound effects and tweaks that I like to throw in every once in a while, depending on the character. So if we have better microphones and a mixer, that will certainly help alleviate some of the issues, no pun intended, that I go through on a weekly basis. But as always, capesonthecouch.live is the website. You can tweet at us, Capes on the Couch. You can email us, capesonthecouch@gmail.com. You can find us on the Facebook page. Find us through the Libsyn network. You can download this show on Google Play, iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, and YouTube. Next week's episode is Booster Gold. And I know Doc is just chomping at the bit for this one because he is totally ready to tear apart the joke that is Booster Gold. So we go from a joke of a Marvel hero to a joke of a DC hero.
And as usual, Marvel does it so much better.
I don't know that there's any Marvel corollary necessarily to Booster Gold. I don't think there's a character equivalent in the House of Ideas, but I think that's kind of what makes Booster that much more unique and special.
Absolutely.
So for Doc Issues, I'm Anthony Sitko. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next week.
Capes on the Couch podcast is for entertainment purposes only. Dr. Issues is a psychiatrist, but he is not your psychiatrist and does not have knowledge of your individual situation. For any personal mental health concerns, please consult your own healthcare providers. For medical emergencies, please call 911 or the designated number in your area immediately. Remember that you are not alone and help is out there.